Psychological problems are for the weak within the academic research game. Whether you are a research assistant or you're a full professor, the idea that you're going to experience problems along the way, it is for the weak. And nobody should be experiencing that if you are successful. This is the logic that is told and thought within the academic game. And I want to talk about that today. Hopefully, what you're going to see is feel that you're normal. But at the same time, is that I'm going to hopefully give some suggestions on how we can actually change this. By the way, if you don't know me, I'm Professor Dave Maslach. And I'm creating the Reciprocity Project. I'm actually trying to change this and unravel this with a game, with a platform. So you could check that out. That's what the reciprocity.com is. So the idea of the academic game is that we are supposed to do the best we possibly can. And we're always on. And if we are not at the top of our game, what we are is a big loser. You know, we have all of these flaws and weaknesses, and you are not playing that well. We're set up in this sort of competitive structure where we compete against each other for these limited tiny resources, whether it is getting into the best PhD programs or graduate school programs, whether it is getting your first job, whether it is getting that prestigious award, where only a few people are getting that. If you show your weakness, then everybody knows what you're about. And man, that is the shameful thing. You should never show your weakness, because they're not going to love that on any of the things that they write about you. And any university is going to be like, oh my gosh, what are we doing here? This person is really pathetic. We don't want them around. And that is the logic that is often told and thought about. In fact, it's probably very real. There probably actually is a lot of people out there that are experiencing this. And there is a deep amount of this playing that goes on, the sort of positioning that goes on. And what you'll see instead is, coupled on the fact that we are very, very, very smart individuals, and people can sort of see those things. We're kind of really dumb in a lot of ways, because even though that this goes on, and everybody knows that it goes on, that everybody is hiding their own personal things that are going on, right? And you start seeing, if you actually start looking at the numbers, it's actually really humbling, and the statistics, right? So on top of the general population of where we actually stand, there is increased risk of problems due to isolation, problems due to anxiety and depression, all of these normal things that we go through. On top of it, we're expected to perform at an astronomical rate all of the time. And if you experience any sort of problems along the way, well, you're garbage, right? Like, you are not living the way that you should be living. And when I come in, when I actually talk about things, my basic premise is that when you come in as an academic, as a researcher, you come in and life happens to you. We have this imaginary view of where you should be in the stories everybody tells, of where you should be. It's way up on the mountain, and yet life happens to you along the way, and you realize that, you know what, this is not so good. So for me, on top of, I got married just before I entered my PhD program, and then within 4 months, both my fathers died of cancer within a week of each other, of all things. So I had my father-in-law, and we were running back and forth between two towns. One of them was in Sault Ste. Marie, if you know where that is. The other one was in London, Ontario. We were going back and forth between these places. And man, it was a stressful time in trying to do my coursework, and things were falling apart, and I couldn't show any of those weaknesses. But for a long time, you do harbor that stuff, and you harbor it not necessarily just within yourself, but you harbor it around, right? And it's hard to deal with the sort of stress of all this stuff going on, because you're supposed to be performing. And so you internalize it and you say, well, I just got to perform better. I got to be a harder worker. And you do, right? You get through all of these kind of things and you muddle through. and you get to the other side, and then you're like, wow, that was really, really tough to go through those particular things. If I didn't have inside, this is where it's so tricky to internalize the fact that, well, I was tough and I got through and I did so strong. But in reality, I'm a little bit of a mess, and I'm willing to openly talk about that. And that's where it's important, and this is where we're going to change some of these things. This is my suggestions of how we're going to change some of these things. I wish that people were a lot more open about this, because that is actually where you get the growth and development and you change. And that's where a lot goes on when you're really open about this and you feel like, yeah, you know what, this is really ridiculous. Why do we assume these particular things? And it's because you get like a weird look from somebody if you're not performing right, or, all of these basic things. So this is the standard thing that happens, right? Guarantee this is going to happen. One of two things that are going to happen to you. Either you get that weird look, you work harder, right? Or what you're going to do is you're going to get that weird look from somebody and you didn't sort of do what you're going to do, and you are going to shy away and you're going to remove yourself and you're going to hide. You got that either fight or flight sort of response, right? And you're going to hide even more and not be part of the conversation. The truth is, you just have to be open. Both people have to be open, right? A lot of this is very much the sort of therapy thing that we have to respond to and be open to it. Now, I'm going to tell you, many people that you're going to bump into, and there's probably at your organization, I guarantee at my large organization that there are people like this, is that you can't talk to them, right? You're scared of them. You really, their responses are almost really terrible. And that's where you have to admit inside when that happens. And I'm going to say, hey, get out of that situation as best and as quickly as you possibly can, because those people, you can't fix those, right? Those are people that they are hurt themselves and they got to heal themselves inside. So, not only on top of that, so first of all, people are different. We do have different personalities, and some of them are just, people do have some really terrible personalities, right? And that is because of growing up in the way that there's sometimes genetics, like a whole bunch of different things that are going on, right? And we can't fix that. So you have to find people that are comfortable, that you can share with, and find that group where you can grow and develop and be okay inside. Because that's the only way that you can keep going, is to get to that moment. And that's where actually, this is the thing that I want you to know, is these moments where you're feeling like that, write this shit down. Like, actually go through it. And that's where you're going to get a whole bunch of inspiration, and you're going to like see the world completely differently. That's the stuff that is important. Everybody resonates with that kind of stuff, right? Those are the things where, yeah, you know what? That is the key to much of science, is actually going through this and being able to voice that stuff. And now you're going to be afraid, right? That's the biggest thing. You're going to be afraid. But that's where I'm going to, hopefully, if you watch this channel enough, you will learn that, man, despite the fact that I'm terrified inside all the time, and I don't know what people are going to say and do, and I guarantee that, man, I ruffle a lot of feathers by doing this, that I keep doing it, right? And it's scary. I have a pit in my stomach right now. I feel like blah, I feel like throwing up. But I'm going to keep doing this because I know it's actually important. And I want you to go through that. That's how you get through these things, right? If you look at the evidence of the only way, other than medication, right? The basic medications that we have, but the only way that we can get through these is through cognitive behavioral therapy, of changing things collectively. And you have to change yourself first. And the way that you normalize things is you openly talk about things, right? And then your behavior changes from that, right? And that's where you will learn to grow and develop and stand up for yourself. You're going to learn how to, when it's an appropriate time for you to take a step back and not. And the only way that you could do this is through constant being open about things and being like, I don't like this, and find your crew, right? And that's where I want you to go going forward, is instead of thinking that you're somehow imperfect, realize everybody is messed up. They really are. Everybody is messed up. We're all a bunch of kindergartners walking around in adult bodies. And once you realize that, and once you look around, you're like, oh man, why am I scared of this person? They're just a kindergartner and they're being a bully. You can walk forward and ignore them because they don't know how to handle their emotions really well. That's what a teacher would say. Give them a little bit of a timeout and then come back and deal with your own emotions and realize, why was that so triggering? What was going on? And actually openly talk about those things. That's an important moment for you to grow and develop. And the more that we can openly talk about these things, we can get through things. Maybe it's in your own family, right? Maybe it is within the community in general. We need to destigmatize these things. We need to be open. We need to say, hey, you know what? I'm just a messed up person. And that's beautiful. All right. Take care and have a wonderful day. Bye.